it's a 3 9 hole standard golf course. 3 9. Unless they added something, or I'm not aware of something. It's possible they've changed it. I don't play there often. They don't let leagues out there. They don't let my league out. See, I'm a professional. If these guys that you're talking about are not. Side hill, wonderful. Weird layout. They're all out of business. but I got me some June had some of these lists. No, but she had a fashion stick with that choir. Yeah. Splash flowers. I think I do a little bit more than splash. Yeah. I'm still learning about it. Yeah. Going in storage in a couple of weeks. Or 1 week. 1 more week I'm going to put in storage. Like storage. Next weekend is supposed to be a little warmer. Yeah. And the exhaust is on this side. So while I'm brushing my leg against the exhaust, I never feel it. So it must be just a light brushing. So I'm doing about $200 worth of pants learning this technique. Which is tough when you're frugal. I don't know if you're frugal or not. Asbestos? Yeah, they're on sale. 10 bucks. Yeah. I don't know if I can wear this. Are there dress codes here? People got sweaters on. I don't know. It doesn't become the world of football. I want to be becoming it. I just do that.
Good morning. said something to Christopher about changing this to full income. Because the response was a little blip, you know.
I agree with that.
And he didn't, but I thought...
Oh, he didn't?
Well, I don't think he probably thought about it since the last
Oh, I didn't even he disagreed.
I don't
You just
think
mean he didn't change it?
He didn't change
okay,
it. So I was going to send some message to Lori or talk to her tomorrow, but I thought I'd make sure that that was on board with you before I did that.
Totally. Okay. And that's how it's listed in the spreadsheet. I have it with songs and I forget how I have it listed. Maybe like benedictions.
Yeah, they
blessings.
Yeah, we don't like to use those Crowley, Postman.
Program. Can't tell the players without a program.
morning, everyone. I'm Kristen Locke, and I am really glad to welcome you all to Fountain Street Church today. Maybe this is your first time here, maybe it's your 500th, maybe somewhere in between. Whether you're watching this online or you're sitting here in our sanctuary, maybe you're watching this at a later time in the future, or you're somebody that chooses to be part of this community and joining groups or committees rather than spending time with us on Sunday mornings. In which case, I guess that somebody else is telling you about this welcome. Either way, my point is that in all the ways that all of you have come here, are appreciated and celebrated, and I'm glad you're part of my community. Good morning. I found Fountain Street many years ago, and several iterations of myself ago. It's been a couple decades now, and I moved back to a town that I grew up in and wanted to forge my way as partly an adult. I wanted to find something more than just new friends. I didn't want bar friends. I didn't want just people that I did the softball group with. I wanted to be part of a group that was working to make the world a better place, and sometimes that meant starting with ourselves. I longed for community. I didn't have a lot of it growing up, and I found that and nurtured that in so many of the spaces I encountered here. I've served meals to our community in celebration and in grief following a memorial. I've worked in the Character School's OWL program, helping teach some of our amazing teens about sexual health and wellness. I've worked in adult education. I've acted as a district leader, helping coordinate the needs of my neighbors in times of struggle and plan social events and execute church picnics and other wonderful, joyous celebrations. I've worked in social action efforts, and I've had the responsibility and privilege for the last couple of years to serve on our governing board, most recently in the role of vice chair. And in all those groups, every single one of them, I found a space that was slightly different, framed with different faces and different goals, and all of which have nurtured me in ways that were amazing and often unexpected. Because for me, Fountain Street Church isn't the building or the history, although both are grand and impressive. Fountain Street is the people, the individuals and the groups that have been with me in some of the biggest journeys on my life, and me in theirs. The joys, entering into marriage, welcoming and dedicating young people, social justice, raising our voices to demand something bigger and better from the world around us. And it's also been a safe space for the hardest parts of life, when I felt lost or struggled in relationships, surviving the pandemic we still find ourselves in, and helping my mom leave her life. I've made lifelong friends, the kind of friends that are like family, that will just be there whenever I need them for the remainder of my years. And I love this church, all the reasons that I've shared, and a million more that I couldn't even begin to delineate. It's woven into me, and I think or hope that some of me is woven into it. That's how these things go. We all change a little bit of what changes us. So if you're new, or even if you're not and you just want a space to find yourself, you're sitting on the edges, unsure of how to get involved, I want to help you connect to this community. I want to find a spot for you to feel welcome. So seriously, email me. You've got an order of service, or it's perhaps on the screen. It's my name at Gmail. You can send me an email and say, hey, Kristen, I want to get involved. Can you help me find my way? Because that's what I want, is I want more community here. I want to grow our space, and I want to grow the amazing people that I've been so lucky to be a part of, because I want that 25-year-old that wanders in the future to also find community and a space here. So today I welcome you to our Sunday services, but also, and maybe more importantly, to being part of our community. I'm so glad you're here, no matter who you love or don't, what you believe or don't. However you feel you've built yourself up, or you're still finding out who you are, whether you're here for today or a month or the rest of your life, thanks for being part of my community. Welcome to Fountain Street Church.
Good morning, friends. I'm Reverend Christopher Rowe. I serve as the acting senior minister here at Fountain Street Church, where Kristen Locke, our vice chair, just welcomed you. And it is such a joy to be with all of you again this morning. We are continuing on this theme of saying no to one thing so we can say yes to another, and of course, letting it begin with we, the very people of this church that have been empowered to make a difference in this world, by welcoming Kurt Reppart this morning. Will you help me welcome him together? He's a wonderful leader in our city, and I am so excited to have his voice and presence with us this morning. Thank you, Kurt. Will you also please help me welcome Jonathan Took back to the organ? I know that I can speak for many of us that we are so grateful he is back. Our choir is with us this morning under the direction of Austin and Margie. And of course, all of you are with us, whether you are here in our seats or joining us from home for this wonderful hour of worship with one another. As I say to you every week, you have nowhere to be but here right now. And I want to invite you into the depths of that with our invitation to worship, which comes to us from an adaptation I have written of A Renewed Hope for This World by the Reverend Nathan Ryan. Hear these words, my friends. Feel these words and let them transform you into this hour of worship with one another. Be it real or be it a metaphor, whatever was in your backpack or whatever is in your briefcase or whatever is in that purse you drug into this space with you. Whatever it is that is weighing you down for an hour, let it go. Whatever you are carrying this morning that has you distracted, whatever it is that has you caught up in shame or guilt, for only this hour, my friends, let it go. If you need it, I can assure you it will likely be there when we're done. So let it go. Come into this hour of worship and this cathedral of love with open hearts. Come into this temple for peace with a soul that is just remembering how it is to be tender and open and vulnerable once again. Come into this space with a spirit that is renewed in hope for the way the world could be. Come into this place, my friends, ready to build the world that we are all worthy of, and come into this space ready to build a world that we are just starting to dream of. Come into this space, my friends, and welcome to worship. As we go deeper into this hour of worship with one another, we come to the space of the witness, which enlivens our souls and our spirits with the words as they are meant to be heard this morning. This morning's ancient witness comes to us from the Tao Te Ching. Hear what the ancient wisdom is saying to this collective contemporary consciousness this morning, my friends. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus it is like the Tao. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. This morning's contemporary witness comes to us from The Art of Power by Thich Nhat Hanh. Hear what his wisdom is speaking to our collective spirit this morning. To understand mindfulness, we need to understand it on a physical level. We can learn how to go home to our bodies. We can start simply by recognizing that our bodies are there and embracing them tenderly with the energy of mindfulness. You generate mindfulness through the practice of mindful breathing and mindful walking. My dear body, I know you are there, and I will take good care of you. Your body becomes the object of your love. If we don't know how to take care of our bodies, how to release the tension of our bodies and give them permission to rest, we don't love our bodies. We all know that our bodies have the capacity for self-healing. When we cut our finger, we know that we don't have to do anything besides clean it. Our body will take care of the rest. We panic when we forget that our bodies have the power of self-healing. If we simply allow our bodies to rest, our bodies can heal themselves without a lot of medicine.
taller than Christopher. Hello, Fountain Street Church. Good morning. My name is Kurt, and as was shared, I'm a city commissioner here in Grand Rapids. But this morning, I'm here to share with you simply as myself, some reflections from my heart to yours. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share a story from my life that moved me forward in my journey. And this is a little new for me. I think that this might be the first time that I've ever stood in a church in a pulpit and I'm going to deliver a message that's not tied to a Christian scripture. I'm just going to tell you a story from my life. And that's a little new for me. I just started seeing a spiritual director about 2 months ago. We spent our entire last session together talking about my nervousness about this moment. And her name is Cammie Mann. She's wonderful. And we had a wonderful time just sitting with each other, just exploring this idea of what is truth and how do we talk about spiritual growth in new ways. So while this might feel a little strange for this morning, I'm just going to go for it. And I thank you for that opportunity. Before I begin, it is my understanding from talking with Christopher that Fountain Street Church is in a period of transition, a time of introspection and reflection on your beautiful history and where you are in that moment. Having walked through a few of those transitions myself in other organizations, I know that can be hard, and I know that it can be sad. Sometimes, though, it could be a little exciting. So I did want to share one note of encouragement from you this morning that is from the Christian scriptures. And this is what it says in Jeremiah 6:16. This is what the Lord says. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. Will you pray with me? Creator, I pray this morning for Fountain Street Church that you will show them the ancient way, the good way, and that you will lead them to rest. Rest in you and rest in one another. Be with us this morning as we discern and listen to one another and listen to our bodies. May you give us new insights today. Amen. So I want to talk about a decision I made in my life that disrupted my life. I was on autopilot, and this disruption helped me to move forward. And it ultimately led to rest, which is my wish for you. In some ways, it happened kind of suddenly, but in hindsight, as I reflected on it in preparation for this morning, at this moment when this story happened, I was feeling pretty stuck, and I had been for quite some time. I needed something that was going to shift my state, shift my mindset, and shift my body. As most things that are good in our lives, it's true, it all started with a question. On my wife's 40th birthday, I asked her how she wanted to celebrate her big day. Without hesitation, she said, I want to take a year away from alcohol, and I want you to do it with me. I said, wow, don't you want a nice watch or something? That's a big request. I confess that I didn't answer as quickly as she asked the question because I had a lot of questions for myself. The first one was, how can I be a politician in Beer City, USA without drinking alcohol? Also at that time in my life, I had just made the decision to leave the Other Way Ministries after 20 years of ministry there. I thought to myself, gosh, that's going to be hard. After those long emotional days, it would be really nice to have a beer or to have some drinks to process with friends. And what about all those emotions that are going to come up? And it was our 10th year anniversary of my annual fall camping trip with my 3 closest buddies. How can I go spend a weekend in the woods without whiskey? And on these questions came. But pretty quickly I said yes. I'd like to think that that's mostly because I'm crazy in love with my wife. But I also knew pretty quickly that it was going to be good for my body and it was going to help me with this shift that I needed. And it was. And I'm here to share that insight with you. And as you may have guessed, it was also quite a spiritual experience for me as well. So in front of you, I thank my wife, Mattia, for asking me that question. Now, I have 3 caveats before I dive into this. I know 3 caveats is a lot, but it's this is a new exercise for me, so bear with me. The first caveat is that I don't intend for my remarks to address alcohol or addiction in any way. They're simply my reflections on my relationship with alcohol and the decision that I made to take a break from it to interrogate how it affected my life. And I'll say on the front end, I still enjoy alcohol to this day from time to time. But now I have a new awareness, and I approach it with difference. And then along the way, there are all these universal insights that I'm going to share with you this morning that I learned through the process. So it's not about alcohol or addiction. Please don't interpret it that way. The second caveat is that it's just one example of a disruption that you could choose for your life. There are millions of ways, large and small, that you could take action in your own life to disrupt that autopilot routine that we find ourselves on so much. And so it's my hope that in sharing my reflections that it will spark something in you. The universal truth this morning is that if you tune into your body and you listen to it, if you pay attention to the place where your mind is spinning and spending energy, I do believe that it'll lead you to a series of choices that can help you to alleviate any suffering that you might be experiencing in your life. Some of those choices will help. Sometimes alcohol can help. Some of them will hurt. There are some things that we can choose when we're suffering that hurt us. And then there are other things that will disrupt, that will be difficult, but that will lead to transformation. My last caveat is that I will lead a couple of very brief and short meditations and practices that helped me along the way. And it's my hope that even a small way that you might find them useful. They're simply there to give you a glimpse. They probably won't give you a lightning rod from heaven with insight of what to do. So before we begin, I'd like to just take a pause. I teach this breathing method in my side life called the Wim Hof method of breathing. Wim Hof is this Dutch super athlete who's climbed Mount Everest in shorts with no shirt on. And he's got the record for swimming under ice in the middle of the winter. Strange stuff, I believe. But his method has taught me a lot and has helped me greatly with my depression and anxiety. So in a moment, we're going to take a breath together. And this isn't just a soft box breathing, belly breathing kind of breath. I want you to take the biggest breath that you can take. And then we're going to hold it for 15 seconds. We're going to take a deep breath in and hold it for 15 seconds. I'll count. You don't have to count. And then release it. You're up for doing this with me? All right. So, on the count of 3, take the biggest breath you can take in and hold it, and then I'll count the last 5 seconds down. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. When we go about our daily life, our breath is really shallow. By taking one very deep breath and holding it for 15 seconds, we can disrupt our autoimmune nervous system for a moment. And in that disruption, we can remind ourselves to pay attention to our breath, to bring our attention back to it. This is one small way that we can help ourselves in a moment of stress, in a moment of anxiety, in a moment of overwhelm, in a moment of depression. You can snap yourself out for just a moment. You can do it in any setting. And this small disruption gets your attention again, This is something that I learned during my year away from alcohol. You could also take a cold shower if you want. It's pretty disruptive to look at that cold shower and turn it all the way cold and brace yourself for it. It kind of shocks your body for a moment, and when I do it, it reminds me I can do hard things. I can handle what this day has to bring to me. So let me talk about what I learned when I took a year off alcohol. My first thoughts were kind of superficial. I was wondering how it was going to affect my body. I was wondering how it would affect my relationships with other people. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, so I care what other people think. I knew that it would be awkward to navigate socially in this town. So I knew that was going to be vulnerable for me, so I knew that I needed to build some new strength and grounding in my life. It was actually quite profound for me to make a decision like that out of love for my wife and love for my own body, and work to try to not care what other people thought about it. I was just doing it for me, and that was empowering enough for myself. I knew that my body would be happy if I took a long break from alcohol. And I also knew that alcohol can be a depressant, so I knew that my mood would likely lift as well. As much as I don't want to admit it, I can be a pretty moody guy sometimes. But I really wasn't prepared how strongly my body would respond to this change. It was wild. Of course, the first thing I did when I made the decision is I Googled what to expect when you take a year off alcohol. Which actually, just Google that later. It's pretty fascinating. But I learned that our liver, this organ that we have that purifies the toxins in our body, our liver can fully regenerate itself and heal itself in 21 days of proper care. 21 days. I buy toys for my kids that have moving parts, and they break within a week. This body has lasted me 42 years, and it still works. And if I give my liver attention, it can fully heal itself in 21 days. Our bodies are magical. I found myself getting excited about healing my body and caring for it in this way. And that intention alone produced positive growth in my life. The way I was living before I made this decision was stressful. Drinking affected my sleep. It also affected my mood. These things made my body exhausted. I knew that I had to work them out pretty quickly, so I went to go see my naturopath, Micah McLaughlin. His office is over on the east side of the city. He did some testing on me, and it turns out that my adrenal glands were just completely shot. So he gave me some supplements for that. In about 30 days, I began to feel my adrenal glands working again, which help you to navigate the stress of your life. He also taught me bioenergetics, which is this crazy yoga thing that I do now. And he also taught me some breath work. Because when I met with him, when I looked in the mirror, I could see it in my face, how it was affecting me. I could feel it in my shoulders. So from this breathing and these bioenergetics, it was helping me to release that tension in my life. My younger brother also introduced me to this Wim Hof method, and the breathing there and the cold showers also supported that healing. And I also lost 19 pounds. I knew that it would be good for my body. What I really learned, though, what it helped for my body was this. It helped my body to rest. I was able to give my body permission to rest, which I wasn't allowing before. Instead of drinking to relax or dull the feelings or reward myself, and then having a bad night's sleep, I actually had a little space in my life for some self-care. This will sound cheesy as all get out, but I literally twice took a bath and listened to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Something I've never done before. And I can tell you that my body appreciated that more than having a few beers after work. My fear and my anxiety led me to rest. And so I'm thankful again to my wife for the question and for her love. I found myself thankful for my body and its miraculous ways that it healed itself and healed me. I found myself thanking my liver for all that it does for me. So even if you don't ever decide to change something or make a major disruption after this sermon, tonight you can think to yourself, what's one thing that I can do to care for myself that might be different? It doesn't have to be baths and Beethoven. It could be baking scones for the morning, or taking a nap, or playing music, or doing some yoga. But if you pay attention to what charges your body, that is also disruptive in this capitalistic system that we live in that just extracts from us. Anytime that we pour within ourselves is a disruption of what that system is pushing onto us. That Thich Nhat Hanh reading that Christopher read earlier said that we've got to love our bodies. We have to help it release the tension. If you're kind to your body, even in a small way, it will lead you toward healing. I can share that with you with confidence. So the benefits and the wisdom that I gained in my body were huge and positive. I shared some of those with you. The other side of the path was how it would affect me mentally and emotionally, which of course also led me back to my body. But this decision to give up alcohol for a year was not all cotton candy and cream puffs. It was hard at times. It was tough work. And that work was really on the inside with my heart. As somebody who struggled with depression and anxiety my entire adult life, I found myself wondering, are these things going to take control? Seriously, I knew I could handle the weekend away with my guy friends without drinking. That would be easy. But how am I going to leave the Other Way Ministries after 20 years? That's going to be some hard emotions to work through. How am I going to deal with this pressure of working on the city commission without that release? These were serious questions, and I found myself a little more than worried or nervous. I was genuinely afraid of these difficult emotions and these wounds in my life. So I looked the fear in the face, and then I tuned into my body again. Where did I feel it? In my shoulders. This is where I carry my fear. This is where I carry my anxiety, right here. If I think about where I carry my depression, it's in the middle of the back, at the back of my heart. I can tell you why that is. I've gone to a lot of therapy to figure out why that is. I paid attention to my body. I found out where this tension lived, and then I could begin to do something about it. I'd never lifted weights. I mean, you can look at me. I'm not a weightlifter. But I started doing these shoulder exercises to try to release this tension in my shoulders, and it started to go away, and also some of the fear started to go away. It was once again magical. With careful attention, I was able to care for my fear and release it. Then, not too quickly, below the fear, I found myself in the realm of anger. Now, I'm not a guy who gets angry very often, but I am a 9 on the Enneagram. If you're familiar, I know that anger can be a transformative emotion for someone who's wired like me. Another quote from Thich Nhat Hanh in his book called Anger: we all need to know how to handle and take care of our anger. To do this, we must pay attention to the biochemical aspect of anger, because anger has its roots in our body as well as our mind. When we analyze our anger, we can see its physiological elements. We have to look deeply at how we eat, how we drink, how we consume, and how we handle our body in our daily life. Richard Rohr wrote a book on the Enneagram, and he also says this, that 9s feel and express rage and aggressions in their imagination until they need to do this, until they have loosed the blockages. So I started interrogating my anger. What was all this anger about? To be honest with you, I was angry with the church. I was walking away from the other way after 20 years of ministry, and you know what? I don't feel like the church equipped me for leadership. I didn't feel like the church supported me in leadership, and I was angry about it. So I worked through those emotions. Sometimes I did it while I was in the bath, and it was nice. And other times I just had to sit and feel and allow those difficult emotions to inform me. I think actually, I don't know if I'd still be a Christian today if I wouldn't have taken that time to interrogate and analyze those deep feelings. I would have just kind of shook everybody's hand, said goodbye, made a few speeches, moved on in my life, and not dealt with that deeper layer. So I'm so glad for that space to deal with it. Because in the process, I was able to see what gifts the church was able to give to me. I can still be angry about what it didn't give to me, but I was able to embrace the beauty that it has given to my life. Miss Cammie Mann's helping me unpack all of that too in my spiritual direction. So, below the surface of my life, there was this suffering, because that fear and that anger were smoldering under this smiley face all along. And so in addition to just sitting with the emotions, I also had to learn, like Thich Nhat Hanh said, to get that anger out of my body. So I started chopping wood. I grew up with a dad who cut wood as a side hustle. My wife and I have this little property north of town that we hope to turn into an interfaith spiritual retreat center someday. And there's a lot of trees up there, and so I just started chopping wood, and I just used that time to just let the anger out. And it was the best. It was the best. I don't run a whole lot, but occasionally I just go out and run hard or put on headphones and listen to loud music. Again, these are simple things, but they help me to release that anger in my life and allow it to transform me. Because if you don't release it, it gets stuck in your body, just like it does in my shoulders, just like it does in my middle back. If we don't pay attention to what our bodies are trying to teach us, it gets stuck, and then that affects the other areas of our life. I learned that not only are there wonderful ways that I can care for myself without alcohol, there are incredible ways that I can release anger in my life and shift it into a force for good. So I'm thankful this morning for my fear and for my anger. They guided me of what I needed to heal from and release in my life. So that's just a glimpse of my year without alcohol. There's a whole lot of stuff I could wrote down. I had to cut so much out of here. It was a profound year of my life. It was a moment where I said no to something that I was regularly saying yes to, so that I can say yes to something different in my life. And my body led the way. Your body can do the same thing. I'm also so grateful for my teachers along the way. I mentioned Cammie and Micah, who taught me how to attune to my body, because it takes practice. We're going to practice here in a moment as a way of closing, and it's just a short practice, and I hope that you'll continue to practice. Because it doesn't have to be a dramatic action like giving up alcohol for a year. There are millions of ways that you can disrupt. It can begin with one simple breath and a hold, that you can disrupt that autopilot of your life and move forward to support your growth. So I'd like to close with a guided meditation and reflection of sorts, and invite everybody who's here this morning, or you can do it online at home, to check in and attune to your bodies for a moment. Because in this work, we have to ask our bodies and our hearts for guidance. And so if you can join me by just gently placing your hand on your heart, I'll guide us with a short time of reflection and closing. If you'd like, you can close your eyes. Just give your full attention to your body. In the other reading this morning, Lao Tzu says the supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. As you tune into your body, allow it to just rest and relax. Can you notice a place where there's tension or tightness? Can you notice a place that's not as flexible as it once was? And then simply reflect on these questions. What might this tension be related to in my life? Or what emotion is behind these places of attention, and where did those emotions originate? If you ask your body for direction, it will lead you to healing, to liberation from your suffering, and to rest. You are held in the love of the Creator. Their love surrounds you. You can rest in the love of the Creator. Finally, just sit with yourself in a moment of gratitude. Thank your body for its wisdom. It holds so much information. Thank your body for all that it does for you. As you give yourself this gentle care in this moment, whenever it feels right to you, just slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. Each of us suffers in a different way. Each of us grieves in a different way. We are not meant to suffer, and we can find healing and liberation from that suffering. I encourage you to tune into your bodies daily on a regular basis. I believe that your body will lead you to liberation and help you return to yourself. The next part of my journey is to explore that. So recently I picked up a book by Rupert Spira called Being Myself. That's going to be the next couple months of my journey of discovery. So thank you for allowing me to share these insights, because I know that that's the journey that you're on here at Fountain Street Church, of just returning to yourself here to figure out what that means for this next season of ministry at this congregation. So I leave you with this sincere prayer for your church. As you look inward during this time of transition, might you find individually and collectively some insight from your bodies. And may you find ways, small or large, to disrupt your individual life or your systemic life as a church that might be on autopilot. May it lead you to healing. May it help you return to yourself, and may you find rest. Amen.
Thank you, Kurt. Friends, we take an embodied moment every week for the ingathering of our love in the form of the offering. One of the ways in which we do that is by surrendering ourselves to the broader and collective good beyond these cathedral walls. Here at Fountain Street Church, we have a rich tradition of sending 50% of that plate directly back into the world, into our collective impact organizations, into mutual ministries we participate in, as well as the grants that we offer so that others can take our resources and take them tenfold. So in the spirit of love and generosity and embodiment of that love, the offering will now most graciously be received. I want to take a few more minutes to keep pushing back against the world beyond these walls. I have been known to say around here that prayer and even the whole context of worship is a protest. It is a protest pushing back against the way in which the world is operating. It's a protest against the demands that are against us to be productive or to make something have a return on the investment. It's a protest on business as usual or even the status quo. I know many of you often will come to me after a global event or even a local one that brings heartbreak to you, and you'll say, but what can I even do? Even a few weeks ago when I got up here and preached that sermon, many of you came and said, I love it, and what now? We rest. I'm so grateful that Kurt reminded us of that. We rest, my friends. And so I want to take a few moments to keep resting. Will you pray with me? Spirit of love, Spirit of living and cycles and rhythms and being, Spirit that time cannot contain, help us to rest. In that rest, in that space of belonging, and in that space of becoming, let our lives speak. Let our souls speak, and let our bodies speak. Like the autumn leaves, surrendering to universal yes, and cascading to the earth, help us to let go and help us to say yes to wherever your spirit wind is moving us next. Many of us come into this cathedral of love filled beyond measure with love and joy and grief and sorrow. Remind us that all of those are true and live within each of us and all of us. Help us to say no to what really doesn't matter, and also help us to resist needing to say yes to anything right now, except for just being. In this moment of silence, hear the joy and the loss that is left unsaid this morning, but is still within this very room with us. And finally, help us to remember we are enough as we are to hear your generous presence within, among, and around us. May we be so brave to listen, and may it be so. Amen. Thank you. Friends, we have a few announcements before we go. You may be seated, unless you want to stand. We have a few announcements. So you might recall, oh my gosh, for the first few years that I was here, Fred and I worked on this moment in the service that was called a moment for, I don't know actually, I'm sorry, a moment for common learning? I don't know, it was too cumbersome. But I would be in here every week, and I remember thinking at the time, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to be in the service every week now. Here we are. But we are going to be instituting something similar. Lydia and I have been working on that as a way of bridging what the children and the youth are doing upstairs, where their themes are going, because they also are a part of the collective we, the Let It Begin With We, and the community building and covenanting they are doing with one another. And so over these few weeks, they are learning about not only the history of Fountain Street Church and the Church Universal, but also what it means to be in community with one another. And so they've been working on classroom covenants with one another and how they want to hold one another in community. And they are also learning about not only the history of this building, but the ways in which this building is a garden for ministry here, and the ways in which it can be nurtured into the future. And so you may have heard them around, you may see them around, they're exploring a little bit today, but that's kind of a little thing we want to layer in each week, is just letting you know what it is that these young minds in the future of our church are up to on Sundays. Next week, we are going to have a guest here again, Ginny Makita, who is a chaplain and also an attorney, and she will be speaking on the themes of animal chaplaincy and St. Francis. It will be St. Francis Sunday next week, and I will actually be gone, which is the first time in my tenure with you that I've been gone on an official program year Sunday, so behave, please. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm the one with the codependence that needs to really work on getting out, so I will be away, but I want to share that with you. It should be a lovely service. Jonathan will be back with us again, and Ginny will bring her loving reflections on the life of St. Francis and animal chaplaincy. Friends, I want to thank everyone again who made this service possible. Will you please thank me or help him? Wow, it's been a long Sunday. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you so much. We appreciate your words. They're a profound gift as we imagine what it looks like to let it begin with we. I also want to thank Jonathan Took for his musical gifts. Thank you, Jonathan. And of course, our wonderful choir community. We are mourning this week the loss of Wendy Kapolka, so we have a chair here in her robe honoring her presence that is no longer with us on this earth, but in our hearts and in our community. So thank you, choir, for bringing her into this space with us this morning. And thank you to you, the people that make this a church and a community. It is such an honor and a privilege to share that space with you. As we go forward this week, please know you are enough as you are to begin with yourself in changing the world. So take a moment, listen to your body, listen to the spirit of time universal that lives within, and remember, we've got one another when the going gets tough. Go in peace, go in love, and we'll see you next week.